notice how shadows never quite touch you. Until they do. We are told as we learn how to grow up that shadows are nothing to fear. We are told that they are simply light being blocked by something or someone. We are told that it's simply science. We are told that it's simply logic. And logic has a tendency to get very bored at 3 a.m. And today's story is not about a monster under the bed. It's about something much, much worse. It's about looking at something that shouldn't be there, and finding out that something is looking right back at you. It's not an old legend passed down for generations. It's not a story that's been told to you by a friend of a friend. It's a story. A story that literally tore a person's world in half. One moment, they are a tired college student trying to get a paper done. The next moment, they are looking at a person standing right inside their own closet. Not the trick of the light. Not a coat. Not a tired mind. A shadow. Tall. Still. Watching. And what makes this story so interesting, what makes this story get under your skin, is that it didn't scream. Didn't move. Didn't do anything except just stand there. As if it had been there the entire time. Just waiting for a time when it would be seen. So today, dim the lights. Don't forget to lock your closet door. And think about something, very, very carefully. If you are looking at a shadow that doesn't belong, would you have the guts to look a little closer? Welcome back to 9 Lives of Fear. Let's go through the dark. The human mind. It's a strange thing. Like a master architect constructing beautiful dreams and terrible nightmares. Most of the time, we move through the world with light. We need it. We rely on it to tell us what's a chair, what's a wall, and what's something we should avoid. But what if that light starts to begin to fail? What if it starts to look like long, stretched fingers reaching into the dark corner of your room? That's when the shadows start to play. And the play is not always fair. We're taught, from the age of crawling, that shadows are science. That they're harmless byproducts of something in the way of the lamp. That logic? It's gone the second you're alone and your heart starts beating. A child sees monsters in the branches outside the window, flickering like ghosts on the wall. And even as adults, with all of our logic, we're still stuck in the same place. We've all been there, thinking for a heart-stopping second that the coat on the chair just moved, that it just looks a little too tall, a little too watchful. It was a night, in the dark years, and I was 13. I was alone in the house, playing video games in the late night. The living room is lit only by the blue glow of the television screen. My dad's study is at the end of the hallway. We don't use it much, and it's always dark in there. I was passing by it on my way to get some snacks, and the sliver of light from the outside street lamp happened to shine on the half-open door a few times. And in that split second, I saw a figure standing there, composed. Tall and lanky, broad shoulders, and a head that was just a bit too large. I was holding my breath, my stomach fell out from under me, and my heart was pounding in my chest like a bird in a cage. And then the street lamp flickered, a bus went by, and the sliver of light shifted. The figure is just a coat rack, a fedora, and a trench coat. The relief was so strong that it made me ill, and I still have this tremor. It was a lesson in how easily our minds could come up with something scary when they're starving for a lack of mental nutrition, how it could take something mundane and make it scary. That was the trick. A slight snag in the kid's mind. But what about years later? That was something different. That was real. It didn't just tap into my fears. It bred new ones, ones that are a part of me to this day. This was no coat rack. This was no branch. This was the closet monster. And it turned everything on its head. As I'm sitting here writing this, it's 2018, and I'm 22, a junior in college, and I'd moved into this small, sort of rundown room in this shared house on the outskirts of town. My room was on the second floor, overlooking some quiet street lined with trees. It was no fancy apartment, really. There was a twin bed jammed into the corner of the room, a desk heaped high with textbooks, and a beat-up wardrobe that served as my closet. The whole house reeked of old wood and dust and every previous owner of the house. It was a scent that was either reassuring or terrifying, depending on the day. It was as if the house itself was holding some dark, secret inside. It was the middle of October, and it was one of those nights where come morning, there's gonna be frost on the ground before you even roll out of bed. The wind was whipping around the leaves on the oak tree outside my window. I'd been pulling an all-nighter, fueled by instant coffee and the absolute need to write a research paper. My eyes were sore, my brain was a used sponge, but I was in the zone. When I looked at the digital clock on my desk, which was shining brightly at 3:17 a.m., I knew that I had to get up. My neck was hurting and my back was aching. The letters on the screen were turning into pixels. I leaned back in my chair and moved my body, grunting loudly in the silence of the room. The room was dark except for the glow of my laptop screen, which was shining a cool blue light, and the foggy light that was seeping into the room from the street lamp on the street. My eyes were unfocused, just scrolling for a moment before refocusing. My eyes started to wander off into the distance. That's where my wardrobe was. A small, rectangular piece of particle board with fake wood veneer peeling off the edges. No doors, just an open front hanging rail and a shelf. I had been able to keep my clothes organized, but under the dim light, my wardrobe looked like a dark cavernous rectangle in the beige wall. I gasped, my tired mind struggled to make sense of what it was seeing. And there, suspended amongst my shirts and trousers, right in the middle of my wardrobe, was a shadow. And it was not my shadow. It was not the shadow of my clothing. This was something else. It was big. Bigger than any of my clothes. It seemed to fill the entire height of my wardrobe, from top shelf to floor. It was generally humanoid, a man standing upright, but it was stretched out, elongated. It had broad shoulders and a head that was but definitely larger than a human head. Its edges were not distinct. They seemed to writhe, shimmer on the edges, like the kind of shimmer you see on hot asphalt on a summer day. It was an absolute black. A void. It seemed to suck in what little light was left in the room. I thought to myself that I was finally hallucinating. I had worked too hard. I was sleep deprived. My eyes were just glitching out on me. I blazed hard. I rubbed my eyes with the heels of my hands until I saw stars. I opened my eyes, and it was still there. Still. Silent. A sudden fear ran through me. My heart made a violent lurch and then settled into this frantic, uneven thudding against my ribs. I was hungry. My throat was dry. What? I whispered. My voice was barely more than a breath in the silence. The shadow didn't move. It just stood there. The stillness of the thing itself was horrific, but I had this primal sense that it knew I was there. It was looking at me, but it was observing. I could feel its head turn, which had no features on it at all, just tilt ever so slightly. But I could feel it. Perhaps it was the lighting, or perhaps I was losing my mind. All I know is that I felt something change, and it was subtle, yet it was there. It was strange, and I could see it happening, just slightly, barely, yet it was there. The lighting was different, or perhaps I was losing my mind, and yet I could sense it. It was subtle, strange, and I could see it with my own eyes. Panic clutched my chest with a cold, thorny vine that wrapped around my lungs. I wanted to do something. I wanted to stand up and shout or turn on the light switch, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen. I couldn't even twitch or anything. My limbs felt heavy, stuck to the chair. All I could do was sit there and stare with wide and dilated pupils at that impossible thing in my closet. The silence was crushing, as if something heavy was laid over everybody's head in that room. Not even the wind outside, Not even the wind outside could get through that, except for the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. The wind outside just kept on howling, but it sounded like it was howling a mile away, in another planet. Just me, the pounding of the laptop, and that. I could feel the cold sweat forming on my forehead. My hands in my lap were shaking. Some kid in me was saying, "Hey, just close your eyes and make it go away." But my logical side, as scared as it was, would have to look at it. I would have to look at it and tell myself that it wasn't really there. And then the truth dawned on me, as clear as the light pouring through the window. Not a rumor, not my brain trying to trick me. It was the truth, the reality of it all. It wasn't a shape, it wasn't a pain in my chest. It was something real, something tangible. I thought of all the things it could be, all the ways I could rationalize this away. Was the shirt on backwards? No, it was too big, too well balanced on my chest. Was it a street lamp? No, it seemed to be coming from behind the wardrobe, and it would never be able to create something like this monolith anyway. Was it a reflection? There were no mirrors, no shiny surfaces in the room at all. And then there was the stone, the nothingness, the whiteness, the void, directly in front of me. The nothingness, and yet the somethingness of it all, the presence of it all, the weight of it all. I don't know how long we sat there, frozen in this fear, this ancient, this sacred fear that cut through me like a knife. My brain reeled, spinning with possibilities. What is it? Is it alive? Is it trapped? Is it, watching me? The fear of being watched in this space that was mine, my haven, my sanctuary, brought forth a fear that was primal, ancient, sacred, and cut through me like a knife. My hair stood on end, the shiver running down my spine as I realized that this space, this place of comfort and solace, had been invaded by something beyond my comprehension, something alien, something wrong. And then, like a shock of electricity, I acted. It began as a tremble, a twitch, and then, taking a deep breath, I reached out my hand and slapped the desk lamp. It was blinding, a flash of light. It was bright, and it was yellow. I was stinging, and watering my eyes, right away. Then, and only then, did I squeeze them tight, and slowly, and carefully, open them again. And the wardrobe was empty. There was only clothing. Shirts, trousers, sweaters, and they were all in the right place, on the particle board, which was wood, and on the wall, behind it, was paint, beige. There was nothing. Nothing at all. And the relief was so intense, it made me vomit. I was nauseous. But the relief was quickly replaced with a grim, empty doubt. Had it ever existed, or had I gone mad for real? The days passed slowly, a haze of sleepless nights and nervous mornings. I tried to think through each logical explanation. Was I hallucinating from sheer exhaustion? I had been burning the candle at both ends, with no rest to be had. Was my brain just malfunctioning? I spent hours researching studies on sleep deprivation and hallucinations, how our brains can play tricks on us with our peripheral vision. But that wasn't in my peripheral vision. It was right in front of me, out in the open. Long real. Too real to be a hallucination from an overworked brain. I surveyed the room, from every direction, from every light source. But still, after these extra nights, nothing. The streetlight was still on. The laptop continued its cycle. I even attempted to recreate the figure by positioning my clothes in a way that I could attempt to fold and contort them to resemble the figure. I could manage some odd shapes, but nothing that even remotely approached that giant, striking figure. For a brief moment, I did consider the possibility of someone breaking in, but that didn't make any sense either. The closet was small and crammed full of clothes. There was nowhere to hide, and besides, that figure wasn't human. No face. No noise. My thoughts, searching for explanations, searching for something to grasp, turned to the darker corners of folklore. Late into the night, I surfed the internet rabbit hole. Shadow figures. Shadow people. The Hat Man. And I knew that I was not alone. Everywhere in the world, through all the lives, through all the realities, there was a single thread that went through all of them, a single constant. Dark, humanoid creatures, always present, always just out of reach of the threshold of sleep and wakefulness. They were referred to as two-dimensional voids, but there was something real about their presence, something tangible, as if they were actually there, present in the air around us. It was suggested that it was sleep paralysis, awakening and interpreting potential danger, but I knew that I had never experienced anything like it before. I was awake, alive, doing my job, reading, my eyes scanning the pages turning, my attempts to continue, to read. The further away from the end of the paragraph, the tighter my chest was becoming. Was the house haunted? Was it a scar, a leftover from some ancient pain? Was there a reason why I needed to know? Just questions, I told myself, rationalizing, pretending, attempting to convince myself that it was a singular occurrence, nothing to be concerned about. But I knew better. Not when I was awake, not when I was alive, not when I was able to move, to think, to read. It was not a dream, not just a dream, but a secret, and I had just found out. I finally moved. Found a place that felt modern and bright, with windows that devoured the sky whole. It feels safe here. The memory lingers, though, and I still check the closet before bed, not out of fear so much as habit born out of what happened. It's a habit that implies something is wounded in me. Yet, I still watch the shadows, trying to figure out which are just tricks of the light, which might be something else entirely. The closet taught me something pretty blunt, though. It taught me that there are holes in knowledge, holes in understanding, questions that don't have answers. It taught me that monsters don't always come in the shape you'd think they would. Sometimes, fear is something you learn from realizing that there are things out there, beyond your understanding, waiting in the darkness. And sometimes, only sometimes, these monsters will show themselves. The things left unsaid in the story, perhaps, are what make it the most terrifying. The things that never happened. No screams. No footsteps. No epiphany. Just an unwelcome shadow, present where it shouldn't be. This is perhaps why the story sticks with you. We can readily assign the strange noises, the drafts, the nightmares, to something else altogether. We can tell ourselves that what you saw with your own eyes, isn't real. Morning eagle eye. Heart pounding. Wide awake alertness. Sleep on the edge. Tricks of the light. A glitch in the brain, or something else entirely. In that quiet time of day, 3:17 a.m., you know the time I mean? Yeah, I do. And fear builds up inside you, fraying the nerves to the point where they can't quite mend back to the same state again. And then, the darkness isn't dark anymore. And closets aren't empty. And shadows don't feel empty. They feel crowded. And whether what you saw in front of your eyes was a hallucination, was a trick of an overtaxed mind, was something beyond our comprehension, it was real. And the paranoia? Real. And those nights you lost? Real. And that cold, creeping feeling of being watched. That someone's there. Terribly real. Maybe truth isn't about what something actually is. Maybe it's about realizing how little we actually know of something. Because if our minds can make something so real, so tangible, so alive, what else could we possibly know? Or, worse, what else could we possibly know? What else might already be there, waiting for the right time to make its presence known? And if you're listening to this in the dark of night, well, breathe slow. Look over to the closet for just a second. I'll see you in the next story. And remember, as always, stay out of the shadows. You survived another tale from 9 Lives of Fear, but don't get comfortable. If the shadows whispered to you tonight, hit like before they whisper again. Share this video with someone who thinks they're brave. Let's see how long their courage lasts. And subscribe, because around here, every click feeds the darkness, and the darkness remembers. Where the shadows linger long after the story ends, stay scared.